This is the first of two videos which is going to look at the process of cellular respiration. Now, often when respiration or the term is used, people think of breathing, and that breathing is different. Breathing is just taking air into your lungs, and from there the oxygen moves into your bloodstream and then into your cells. We're going to have a look at cellular respiration. We're going to look to see what that process actually is, and we're going to look at the key role of a molecule called ATP. Now, respiration involves the chemical release of energy from food. Chemical energy is contained in foods like in fats and in proteins. But when we talk about energy in respiration at National 5, we refer to that chemical energy mainly coming in the form of glucose. So glucose has got energy contained within it. Because glucose has got energy contained within it, we define respiration as the breakdown of glucose to produce energy. And that breakdown takes place in cells, and it's controlled by lots of enzyme-controlled reactions. And when the energy is released from the glucose, it has to be stored somewhere. And it's stored in the cell in the form of this molecule here called ATP. Now, ATP is short for adenosine triphosphate. You don't need to know that detail, but we'll just go on and just have a brief look at the structure of ATP just to help us understand a bit about how that energy is stored. I said in the last slide that energy released from glucose is used to make ATP. Now, I've put a representation of an ATP molecule here. You don't need to know this amount of detail, but it's just in order for you to be able to maybe understand why we call it a chemical store of energy. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is called that because it's got an adenosine molecule and it's got these three inorganic phosphate molecules. And what happens when glucose is broken down, the energy that's released is used to form this bond that is here between the second inorganic phosphate and this third one. This third inorganic phosphate is found free, and what happens is when the energy becomes available from the glucose, it is used to form this bond, and so the energy is stored in that bond there. And then when the cell needs to have energy, what happens is this bond is broken and this inorganic phosphate goes free, and when this bond is broken, it releases energy. And that's really basically all you need to know about ATP. I said you don't even need to know the whole of the detail of this molecule, but it's to help you just to have an idea of how that energy is stored there. Now, this means that ATP plays a really important role within the cell because it's able to store energy and it can then release energy. It can transfer the energy that it's got stored there to make it available for processes that are taking place in the cell. And those processes can be things such as muscle cells contracting, cell division taking place, in other words mitosis, active transport of molecules into or out of the cell, or transmission of nerve impulses is a nerve cell we're looking at, or the building up of proteins, in other words the synthesis of proteins. All of these processes and many more are all dependent on energy being transferred to them from ATP.